Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Lifeline. We're your host, life strategist and entrepreneur Bo Powell, social media influencer and owner of the for-real brand Lynchburg Petway, and yours truly, leadership consultant and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Do us a favor, like and subscribe to us on our content on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and now on TikTok, and then share with a family member, friend, or even a coworker. Once again, we're honored to have Baltimore native, husband, father, educator, artist, community organizer, founder of the Hilton Recreation Center in West Baltimore, chairman of the Civilian Review Board of Police Accountability, and former NFL linebacker Aaron Maybin. Mr. Maybin, welcome back, man. How are you?
I'm wonderful, brother. Thank you for having me again.
Man,
Great to see you.
Glad to have you, man. After our last conversation, yeah. So let's just hop in. So on the last episode, we talked about your career and your retirement from the NFL, and amongst the other things that you do, you're an artist. You put down the pigskin, as I say, and you picked up the paintbrush. So talk to us a little bit about that transition, your love for art, and how you use your art.
Absolutely. So the transition didn't come out of nowhere. It's not like I just picked up a brush and decided that this is what I was going to do now. I've been an artist since, childhood. I was making art before I could form words and speak.
Wow.
And, at a very young age, my parents recognized that the only time that I was really standing still, I was sitting still, was when I was creating. You know what I mean? So at a very young age, I'm talking like 4 or 5 years old, anywhere that we went as a family, my father had a little bag in the car that had, a spool of paper and that had, color pencils, pens. And wherever we went, he would bring it. And if he needed me to sit still, he would just put the art supplies down and, let me do my thing. And even, especially, I think after my mother's passing, art became my preferred language method of choice for a while. I became kind of nonverbal,
Wow.
isolated myself a little bit for some time, just dealing with the aftermath of losing her, and depression, anxiety. Those were my first kind of like experiences with that. And even though I didn't talk much to anybody except for maybe like my father at the time, I would talk through my artwork. So, you might not be able to get 2 or 3 words out of me. You might not be able to get more than 2 or 3 words out of me. But if you looked at the art that I was creating, you could very easily see where I was emotionally. And I'm thankful that, I was blessed to have a mentor as great as Larry Poncho Brown, who I consider to be my second father. He's somebody that is a world-renowned artist from here in Baltimore City that for me was my North Star creatively growing up. My father would there were only 2 places as a child that my father was ever really allowed to just drop me off and leave me there, because I was the definition of a rambunctious child. And usually if you left me with a family member for more than a couple hours, I probably was not getting an invitation to return to that family member. But Poncho's space was like the only space besides like being with one of my coaches training. That was one of the only spaces that he could just leave me and know that there would be no issues, So I spent a great amount of time in Poncho's studio as a kid, learning how to create, but also studying how he told stories visually. And that really became not just a hobby of mine. I knew at a very young age that I was going to be making art for the rest of my life. I just can't say that I saw this exact path being the one that I took, but Saw it at a very young age, and even in college, I double majored. I was a broadcast journalism and integrative arts major.
Okay.
So, even at that age, I knew that whatever point that I was done with the game, or the game was done with me, that art was going to be a big part of the next chapter of my life.
You posted something powerful on Facebook about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer. You talked about your two fathers, and
Hmm.
you talked about how your father had the bandwidth to allow somebody else to be part of your network of fathers, which
Yeah,
I thought was
man.
powerful.
If you look on, like, I have that conversation with other brothers regularly, man. Like, it breaks my heart when I look on social media sometimes and I see all this discourse about, you know, this idea that no other man is going to be able to teach my son or raise my son, or you know what I mean, like, or nurture my son. But it's like, thank God my father didn't subscribe to that kind of BS. Thank God my father never allowed his ego to stand in the way of another man loving on me and teaching me and supporting me. Like, I would not be here,
Man, powerful.
and I think that one of the things that I love and respect my father for so much is the fact that he knew where his deficiencies were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he knew what he knew and he knew what he didn't. There are things as an athlete that, yeah, I can teach you this, but then there's certain things where, nah, I need to get you over here with this coach that knows what he's talking about. And the
Right.
same with the arts. He understood that, hey, I'm not an artist. I don't know how to do any of this stuff, but one of my best friends over here happens to be a world renowned painter, and thank God I had the example of what another comprehensive man looked like. Like, Pancho has never disciplined me. Well, no, these tongue lashings are definitely disciplined, but like, he's never put his hands on me. You know what I
Right.
mean? He wasn't big on, structured discipline, so to speak, but he taught me so much about myself and about life. And I think about, like, what if my father had allowed his ego to stay in the way of that? Then there's so many lessons and blessings that I wasn't fortunate enough to receive. So I
Yeah,
always tell, the brothers that I mentor and that I work with, like, don't deprive your children of having a village of comprehensive, loving Black men around them. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Yes, we need to keep our kids safe and we shouldn't put them in spaces with people that we can't trust.
Hmm.
But if you know that you can trust someone, allow them to teach your children the lessons that you might not be equipped to.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's powerful. Let's talk about the arts. As a former educator who worked at a performing arts school,
That's right.
that was one of the caveats of our building. It was the Marvin L. Winans Academy of Performing Arts. So we had orchestra, we had jazz band, we had dance, we had art. So people don't really realize how the brain works. So you have your, as people say, your academic side and your artistic side. You're doing some great things with arts, teaching creative arts and logistics. How have your students responded to that? Because I remember back when I was in education, we had some students who were very nonverbal, but they would sit in that class and create some of the most beautiful pieces of art.
There has never been a child that I've ran across that I can't build common ground with using the arts.
Mm,
That's how transformative it's been. And anybody that's familiar with Baltimore knows what kind of an accomplishment that is, because our kids aren't the most expressive.
true.
Where a lot of our children are dealing with deep-seated issues of trauma, issues of abuse, issues of lack, growing up in poverty, without access to enrichment. But when you get exposed to it, and you get exposed to it from someone that loves you, from someone that genuinely wants to see you be the best version of yourself that you can be, um, it changes you. And I think that as an educator, the art has allowed me to break the ice. It's
Hmm.
allowed me to be expressive and vulnerable with my students, using my own lived experiences, using the visual narrative of the art that I've created. And more than anything, what I wanted to do was give them a language and a toolkit for expressing themselves using the creative arts, whether it be through creative writing, whether it be through storytelling, as far as painting, as far as spoken word. The first curriculum that I created was entitled Art Activism. And the whole idea of it was using my artwork as a blueprint to teach kids how to create work to narrate their lived experiences, but more importantly, to reimagine society in a better way. You know what I mean? Whether you look any time period that you look at in American history, the narrative and the story of Blackness in this country has been told through the arts. You know what I mean? Through the blues, through gospel, through the spirituals during slavery, through the Black Renaissance and the arts movements that took place in New York and Chicago and Baltimore. We're living through a modern day Renaissance similar to what took place in Harlem during that time, and most people just don't realize it because there hasn't been some white man to write a book about it to tell us how important it is. But those of us that are here, that are living through it, we understand that 20, 30, 40 years from now, there are going to be classes taught about the artwork that's being created right now and its impact on society. And what I wanted to do was use my artwork as a blueprint for kids that needed to learn how to be able to do that, but to bring that into the school system where there is clearly a disconnect and a void of resources for kids that have that kind of expressive mindset and skill set. But it needs to be nurtured. Those seeds need water. And we don't have enough spaces in our public school system typically where we can water those seeds, you know. So I always wanted to be a part of creating those mechanisms and bringing that into the communities that are always last to have access to them.
Yeah, that's powerful. So you're an artist, you are a community activist, but in that community activism, you are over or the chairman of the Civilian Review Board for police accountability. So talk to us a little bit about that and how you got into that space.
That is a long story, so I'm going to try to condense it. Coming out of college, well, when I was in college, first and foremost, I studied broadcast journalism and integrative arts with the understanding that I wanted my art to be a tool of resistance, a tool of inspiring change. Like I studied the time periods that we just spoke about, the Harlem Renaissance. You know what I mean? The blues that was created in the Jim Crow era, and I looked at the impact of that work on all of the movements that we've experienced in this country. And I wanted my art to be a modern example of what it means to do that. You know, there is no Black Panther Party newspaper without the work of Emory Douglas. You know what I mean? The one that created the newspaper and created all of the artwork that captured people's minds and attention and inspired them to get involved in the movement. You know what I mean? When you look at the songs that were take the a change gonna come from
Sam Cooke.
Sam Cooke and Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday.
Oh,
These songs weren't just moments in time. They narrated a lived existence that was largely ignored, not just by people in America, but across the globe. But art is one of those things that cuts through all of the noise of indifference and it pierces through all of the divides that separate us. So if the four of us were sitting in front of a painting on the wall, all four of us would have a different perspective of that work and what the artist was trying to say. But what would quickly become apparent is that there might be a million miles between your world and mine. But the space between us is the space that allows us to grow. You know what I mean? And it creates the space where we can have that dialogue and not have to run from it.
Right.
So understanding that I wanted my work to be an example of how we actually galvanize people around certain issues. And I've always been really intentional about using it in that way. So when I came back to Baltimore, I was creating art, but I also was getting involved in terms of like showing up to protests, showing up to organizing meetings, showing up to community association meetings, and understanding that, you know, change is directly connected not just to protest, but organizing. You know what I mean? Protest is just one element of organizing. Education is also included in that. Economics are included in that because you got to fund the movement. You know what I mean? People don't just show up. Like, you know what I mean? You got to get message out to them. You have to create resources and tools for mutual aid for folks that are on the margins. And as I started to learn more and more about these things, I understood the systemic factors that were plaguing my community, and understood that, like, you know, we could chop branches off the tree all day, but if we don't start hacking away at the root, ultimately we're not doing anything. So that set the stage for my introduction into legislative policy work. I helped some of our policymakers to draft a few bills that were centered around this idea of, before defund police became like a national, you know, kind of outcry in 2020. We were having conversations about how we need to take some of these money that we are paying towards our police departments in these inner cities and actually put that money towards solution based responses to violent crime. And, you know, fast forward to today, you know, we have a mayor that is actually implementing some of those policies. And, you know, if you're paying attention in Baltimore right now, we're experiencing one of the most significant drops in violent crime that have ever existed during not just my lifetime, but the lifetime of all of my family here. So wow. Understanding early on that all of those things were connected, you know, the organizing, the education, and the legislative policy work, I wanted to put myself in positions to really impact those areas. So went into the school system, did a lot of like grassroots and community organizing through the school system. We raised some money to address some issues that the schools were having around basic necessities like heat and AC, and the food that we're feeding our children and all of that kind of stuff. And we raised so much hell in the school system that they ended up trying to find a way to get me up out of there. But during that time, me and my partner, another former NFL player named Torrey Smith, who played here for the Baltimore Ravens, we decided to open up the rec center over at Hilton. We had found a building and understood that, like, you know, if we could get it up to code and find a way to get it open, then, you know, we could have direct action impact within the same community that I grew up in. And we did that. And during that time, this is after, you know, the uprisings in 2015 and 2020. A lot of those legislative policy moves that we were making led to boards that were created to really address some of the discrepancies that existed within our police department. And at a certain point in time, I was asked to come on to the board to represent West Baltimore just as a board member. So, you know, that was my first, that was the first official, you know, I don't consider myself a politician, but that was the first kind of political assignment that was representing West Baltimore as a member of the Civilian Review Board. But after a few months, our chairperson had stepped down, and that just so happened to coincide with an effort from the city to dismantle our board in favor of another. So at that point, I was elected chairman of the board to try to fight back against some of those efforts, and to really inform our community about the work that we were doing in terms of police accountability. So I assumed that role and operated as efficiently as I could for the amount of time that I was there. But unfortunately, about 3 months ago, the city was successful in dismantling the Civilian Review Board of Police Accountability, which is the oldest and only independent police oversight board in the city of Baltimore, and the blueprint that all of the other police accountability boards are built off of. So since that time, most of my work has gone back to the grassroots of organizing people and holding our policymakers accountable to making sure that one of our other accountability boards is given the independence and the investigatory and subpoena power that allowed our board to do the great work that we were able to do for so long.
Wow. Yeah. So you mentioned this, that you guys had the opportunity to found and open the Hilton Recreation Center, and you're currently in a $25 million expansion project. Can you kind
We
of?
actually just finished that expansion.
Oh, you
So
did. Congratulations. All
last
right.
month, we had our ribbon cutting
Okay.
and our unveiling of the new space. As you said before, when we opened it, it was the Hilton Rec Center. But thanks to our new partnerships, we are now the Baltimore Ravens Boys and Girls Club at Hilton.
Oh, wow.
And we are
Congratulations.
now
Yeah.
partnered with the Baltimore Ravens, with Under Armour, and with the city of Baltimore on this new building. The expansion has been I apologize. As I said before, I'm still in the hood, so if y'all hear that,
I thought it was me. It's so loud. I thought it was me. I need my mic. It's all good. It's good.
But yes, so we just opened our doors back up. We were blessed. We opened up the building in 2020. In 2023, we reached an agreement with our new partners on the $25 million expansion of that space. We broke ground and during the summer of 2023, and we are just finishing up with construction. We just finished up with construction now and have started programming again during this school year. So what's amazing about that is the school building that is right next to us is the only independent middle high school on that side of the city, and they have never had their own home facilities. So their football team, their basketball team, all of their sports teams, they have to go to other schools to practice. Usually they have to get up at the crack of dawn to be able to go to other schools to practice before they make their way to their actual school building. So thanks to this expansion, they now have their own home football field. They now have their home basketball court. We have what is considered now the biggest basketball facilities in West Baltimore, but we also have an independent library that we created there during the time that they started all of these banned books from our education system. So we have them in our facility. We've got computer lab. We've got green screen studio. We've got a recording studio so our kids and people can do podcasts and interviews similar to what we're doing right now. We have dance studio in there. We have multi-purpose room. Anything that you can think of the community hub needing, we have in this space. And that is only possible thanks to the creative collaboration that we have modeled and hopefully established as a blueprint that can be replicated across the country.
Wow.
It's powerful.
Yeah. I'm sure I can speak for Petway, man, but thank you for being an example.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you for raising the bar. That's powerful. So final question, what's next for Aaron Maybin, and what do you want your legacy to be? I told you earlier that you really have controlled your own narrative, which I think is powerful, that you've not allowed the world to tell you what you're going to do or who you're going to be. You've not allowed your family to tell you who you are, what you're going to be. You didn't even allow the engine of the NFL to tell you who you are, what you're going to be. You've created your own narrative. So since you are and have created your own narrative, tell me what's next for Aaron Maybin and tell me what you want your legacy to be.
Okay. What's next is the first and the easiest question to answer.
Okay.
So right now, now that the rec center is back open, there are a couple other projects that are up there on the priority list for knocking out next. I'm currently in the beginning. We are about to start a transformative program that we have rolled out this year. It's myself along in partnership with former Senator Jill Carter and former City Council member Christopher Burnett. We've started a program called CLEP, which is a community leadership and excellence program that focuses on civics. And in terms of like, we will be training up the next crop of me's, the next crop of Jill's, senators, the next crop of city council members. We need to start building those individuals from within our communities. I'll say it like this. When you look at the some of our political opposition in this country from the conservative side, if I'm a young conservative, right, and I have aspirations of becoming a politician or becoming a board member or becoming a grassroots leader, I can send them to the Heritage Foundation. I can send them to the Federalist Society. I can send them to all of these different pipelines that educate them on the process of creating laws, of lobbying, of organizing, you know what I mean, that will put them on the path to political leadership. We have never had an equivalent of that on the left. We have never had a pipeline. When I was a kid, they had pipelines that could get you from elementary school to a Division I college. I was in one where, you know, they can find a coach to train you. You know what I mean? They can find a nutritionist to tell you what to eat. They can find somebody like we talked about last interview that can help you understand mentally how to be the best athlete that you can be. We don't have enough equivalents of that academically, politically, and socially.
True that.
So that is what this organization is going to be. This first cohort that we are doing is about 20 people. We're partnering with Coppin State University, which is going to be hosting our first cohort. And it's going to be a few month long cohort where we intensively work with these people to educate them in terms of how to accomplish goals from the grassroots level, the local city level, and the state level in terms of policy and in terms of creating different resources in community that our communities desperately need. So I'm really proud about that. That's something that we've been looking to do for a while. I've really been wanting to work with Senator Carter and with Councilman Burnett on something like this because they are both very like-minded in terms of training up this next generation of leaders. Because you know, I'm thankful for the faith and the belief that my community has in me, but I don't want to be the person that you're looking to speak for Baltimore 20 years from now or 30 years from now. I want the people that I'm teaching now to be the ones that have the microphone in their hand, you know, and I think that it should be our job to guide and to use our wisdom to help them to understand and determine their own direction. But I think that we have too much history with gatekeepers that weren't good custodians of those positions. And I want to turn that paradigm on its head by being the person that breaks glass ceilings and drops a ladder for the next person. So that's something that I'm really excited about that we're rolling out with. In addition to that, we're doing a lot of different programming in the rec center now with it being reopened. So we're gearing up for our first few citywide youth summits where we train, educate, and deputize cohorts of youth leaders that will then return to their schools and neighborhoods around the city and be the younger mouthpieces for the work that we are all doing as a collective. And, you know, just kind of helping to steer and guide them in terms of the changes that they wish to create in terms of reimagining society. And then in terms of art and narrative, there is a series that I am working on right now, a show series and kind of like built around an interview format entitled The Journey to Zero. Nice. And in this series, I am seeking to reframe the public narrative of how we reimagine public safety in the city of Baltimore. Growing up, it was kind of just accepted and known that we were going to be above or around 300 murders a year in the city of Baltimore, and that we were always going to be one of the top 25 most dangerous cities to live in.
Yep.
But as we spoke about last conversation, this is the first time that I've been alive that Baltimore hasn't been on that top 25 list. And this is also the first time since I've been alive that we are experiencing such a dramatic drop. Like, you're talking about going from over 300 murders a year to going under 200. You know what I mean? Like, that is something where it is still nothing to celebrate, 200 people losing their lives. But in terms of framing the narrative of public safety, the journey is zero. And who are the people that are making that possible? Who are the individuals in community, like myself, the folks that we are all working with, that are reimagining public safety through creating solutions to our most entrenched problems, and instead of just talking about the problems. So that is something that I'm really excited about, that we're coming out with soon. And just in terms of my art, continuing to put out new work that is adding depth to the nuance of this discussion in terms of like what our narrative is as a community and how it continues to change and evolve for the better. And, putting out new books as well, getting on code. My most recent book has been turned into a school program and into an outpatient program for returning citizens and folks that are dealing with mental health issues. And that's been extremely successful. And I'm thankful for the growth that we've been able to see on that front as well, because as I've gotten older, I've become I've been put into positions where I'm able to break bread with and pour into other Black men, other fathers that are navigating their existence here in this city and trying to find ways of doing a better job of it, of being better fathers, of being better husbands, of being better members of our community. And I don't think that those brothers have ever gotten the credit that they deserve, for fighting against those stereotypes through action. So I want to continue to pour into and highlight those brothers and provide examples for their sons of what comprehensive masculinity looks like, so that we continue to develop and grow into a city where our sons and daughters are safe and have access to all of the things that they need in order to be successful.
Awesome, man. And tell us before you go, what do you want your legacy to be?
Man, servant leadership. I think that every single day at some point somebody comes to me and asks me when I'm going to run for office.
Yeah.
And I'm trying
I was about to ask you. I was about to ask you.
And I think that's a problem, right? I think that the fact that we think that the only impact that we can have on community is by running for office is a part of the problem. I want to be an example of how every single person, elected or not, rich or poor, you know what I mean, can be a part of reimagining and creating a better society. Right. And I tell people all the time, I'm probably more impactful as an organizer, an activist, and an artist than I could be as a politician. Because in order for you to run for office, like the elephant in the room that we don't want to talk about is, as long as big money is in politics, and as long as you have to go kiss rings and make promises that go against your character in order to get elected, nothing is going to change. But the power resides in the proletariat. The power resides in the people. And, if you're in Baltimore and you're plugged in, that most of our politicians don't want me as an enemy. And that's something that I can utilize towards getting things done. But in order for me to join the party, so to speak, it will require me to compromise elements of my morals and integrity that I refuse to. So I want to be the one that trains the politicians. I want to be the one that helps to guide the leaders that do see that as their path. Yeah. Because I think that even if you look at, the role of being an artist and a provocateur of narrative by highlighting certain things that people don't want to see, look at, or talk about is very effective. So I can't say that the space that I'm in right now is going to be the space that I'm in 15, 20 years from now. But right now, I see myself as a soldier. And I think that, when we're living in a society where everybody wants to be a chief and nobody wants to be on the front lines, we need more people to be willing just to be in the fight.
Nice. Pete, you want to say something?
No, I mean what you're saying is it's a truth. Unfortunately, to make the change, you sometimes have to be the soldier rather than the leader because of the systems that we have. Even though I think in due time, as you mature and maturate, you 37, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I'm 53. So when you see those years in between there, sometimes you have to get in certain positions to help the next soldier come up.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So that's why I say I used to say never. You
Right.
know what I mean? But I've gotten to the point now where I understand that even my position here in the trenches, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm always going to have a presence here, but is 50, 60-year-old me as effective as 30-year-old me? You know what I mean? Like, and if the answer to that question changes, then the nature of how I activate needs to change.
Right.
So I'm at the point now where I want to do what's effective. I want to do what leads to solutions. I want to do what makes sense for my community. And right now, I see that as being an advocate, being a warrior on the front lines, but also being somebody that does the hard work of holding our policymakers accountable. Because a lot of times people talk about that, but they don't really know what it looks like.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it requires you having relationships with our mayor, with our governor, with our senators, with our council members. Not just so you can dap each other up when you see each other at the parties and on the streets, but that when something happens, you can call them and say, hey, we need you to address this way right now. And knowing that they understand that that's not a request because they work for us, So ultimately, I want to be a good steward of the position that I have in community and of the calling that God has put on my life. So I want to make sure that, in all things, I'm staying consistent and true to that desire.
Powerful, man. Tell us once again, Bo. I'm sorry, P. You had something to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Tell us again before we go. Tell us where we can find you, your art, your websites, all of those things.
Absolutely. If you go on any of your social media pages and you just type in Aaron Maybin or Aaron Maybin Art, my work will come up. We are finishing up revamping my website right now, but it will be back live for our Cyber Monday sale. And you can learn a little bit about what we're doing philanthropy-wise through the Aaron Maybin Foundation. But you can also see some of the exhibits and things like that we have coming up. I'll be doing a 100 for 100 sale of small originals for the holidays that we're going to be doing at one of our galleries here on the West Side. I'll be putting information out about that probably next week. And then I have another exhibit coming up in Central Pennsylvania at one of their museums in Altoona coming up in the spring. And I'll have another round of solo exhibits coming up in the summer that will be taking place in Baltimore and also traveling to some of our other main locations as far as Chicago, Miami, and Atlanta so far right now. But anybody that wants to keep up with the work can just find me on social media and you'll be able to see updates on all of those things.
Man, it's been a privilege to have you on. And you're busy. You're a busy man.
I wear a lot of hats, my brother.
Man, but it's been
Speaking
a
of
privilege to have you on.
art, tell me about the art behind you, especially the one where I see three arms? It's 3 arms. I see 3 arms.
Oh, so this one, yeah, this is a piece really focusing on the idea of self-love. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to get it get that glare off of it. But the
We can
whole
see what
the
you're doing.
concept of this piece, I mean, the title of this piece is "Keep Your Heart Intact," and it is accompanied by a female version of the same piece that focuses on, you know, that concept of protecting your heart, you know what I mean, protecting your peace. But yeah, all of this art behind me, we're sitting in my office right now, so these are either concepts that haven't become paintings yet, or pieces of a series of paintings that I'm still working on continuing that series. So I always keep them around so that I'm constantly thinking of the next steps. Exactly. So
Wow.
you know, yeah, you look around in my I would do a 360 panoramic view of the place right now, but it's literally a mess in here because I'm just getting done bringing out a bunch of work for an exhibit that I have going on this weekend. But yeah, man, it's just books and art everywhere.
So you said that one of the eras you studied was the Renaissance period, the Great Renaissance, the Black Harlem Renaissance, I should say. And
Yes.
as we end, man, you really are a Renaissance man. There's one other person I consider to be a Renaissance man, in our age group, but you're a little bit younger than us, but you're definitely a Renaissance man.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. We need to bring that back, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I'm so out in the open with all of the things that I'm doing, because growing up, you really felt like you had to hide those elements. You know what I mean? Because people didn't see them as manly. People didn't see them as cool. You know, they would associate um, um, my artistry with femininity. You know,
True.
because it just wasn't something that you saw a bunch of young boys doing. You know, I'm a kid in the hood that acts in school plays and sings on the choir, and you know what I mean, like paints and draws and does and dances and does all of this stuff. But now, you know, I think that a lot of our kids are a lot more comfortable expressing their loves for these things and being bold about their desire to learn more. And I think that the more that they see brothers that look like them, that are, you know, champions of these things, but again, we got to find ways to make it look cool. You know what I mean? And I think that not enough of our elders did a good job of that when we were younger. You know what I'm saying? The same
Gotcha.
way the dope boys made a certain life look cool, I want to make it look cool to be a good husband. I want to make it look
Wow.
cool to be a good father. I want to
Yeah.
make it look cool. Like, I want to be able to put on the 3-piece and get respect the same way I put on the hoodie. You know what I mean? And look like your big brother. You know, and I think that our kids need to see examples of brothers that can do both, of
Yeah.
brothers that still speak colloquially, but can go lecture at Johns Hopkins this afternoon and still demand the same amount of respect. You know, and yeah, like, I think that all of our Renaissance men, you can't tell me that Langston Hughes wasn't cool. You know what I mean? You can't tell me that James Baldwin wasn't that guy. You can't, like, and we need to, our guys need to see our intellectuals, our artists, and our community folks moving with that same sense of purpose, but moving with that same sense of fly. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
Black Panther Party had everybody going around with a black leather jacket because of the presence that they walked around with.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that we need to be able to adopt a lot more of that mentality into how we carry it on a day-to-day basis. So
Love
yeah,
it,
I
man.
want to be an
Love it.
example of what that looks like for our
And
kids.
for the record, his youngest son's name is Langston.
Yep. Langston. Yep.
Really? That's
Yeah,
that's what,
yeah, yeah, man. This has been great, man. Hopefully you'll come back. Um,
absolutely.
Man, this has been incredible, and I'm honored. And I celebrate the fact that you are from Baltimore. Man, it's just been outstanding. P, you got something to say before we close?
No, man. It's been a great show, man. Very informative.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, yours truly, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway, and Bo Powell. Don't forget to check us out at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and subscribe and like us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Feel free to email us and show us some love at The Lifeline Podcast TV at gmail.com. And look, we are on a mission. We want to bring light and life to your household because it's all about you on The Lifeline. God bless everybody and take care. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on the Lifeline. God bless.